Hello, my name is Byron Martin, CEO of Technologize. I'm excited to be here today to be able to share this with you. In the last couple months, there's been a lot of this particular subject coming up with our clients, and I've taken the opportunity to put a few things together that I could share with you, and hopefully you can find it useful as a small, mid-sized business. Smartphone devices, mobile devices, they're all over everybody's using it, right? And one of the things that everybody wants to do is be able to check their email on their phone. Of course, it's convenient, it's easy, and I can't tell you how much work and business I do just on my phone. I'll be laying on the couch, hanging upside down, sending emails and other things like that, or work-related stuff, pulling up documents. It's convenient, it's easy, and it's right there at your fingertips. So this is a very powerful device. Now, the challenge, though, is that now we have a big mix of corporate-owned smartphone devices and I think in most cases, personal smartphone devices. And in the past, in the last couple of years, big convenience, everybody jump on board. But now I'm seeing more and more issue of personal devices used to access company data. Oftentimes email and other things. So what we've had to look at with our clients is formalizing more mobile device policies that can be adopted by, not just from a technical standpoint, but from an HR standpoint and legal standpoint. Now, these are all elements that, you might think would apply to bigger organizations, and you're absolutely right. But more and more because of security, because of privacy and industry compliance, that this is really starting to funnel down to the small and mid-sized businesses as well, where it's going to be necessary for them to have mature policies in place and be able to enforce those policies both from a technical standpoint and an HR standpoint. So here's so that's kind of laying the groundwork of what's on my mind. And let me show you or just share with you some of the examples of what is a mobile device management policy. Well, it can be pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it doesn't have to be really complex. It really depends on the information, type of company, what you have got going. Who you are, it depends on what industry or what regulations you have to abide by and compliance. But let me give you some examples. So there are simple things. Let me just go into some simple technical requirements that I, having audited some organizations, I'm just floored that this is an issue. But, well, actually, I'm not surprised. So here it is. Smartphone device operating systems need to be supported by the manufacturer. Why? You need to be able to have security updates that are applied and that you are able to apply to your smartphone device. Okay, pretty straightforward. But how many of you, how often do I just I'm in the middle of something, ignore. I don't want to do that update right now. And what happens is if it gets too far behind, then you're putting potentially your data, your company information at risk, your email, for example, your business email, because you might think, it's just that one email. But what we're finding is that there's malware and other things being installed on smartphones that is then tracking not only the user behavior and activities, but it's either extracting or it is getting information, potentially compromised passwords, compromised email accounts, and then those bad actors, they get a little foothold or even a little finger in there, and they'll just start worming their way into corporate networks or small business networks. So really, we've got to look at those smart devices as a potential vector or endpoint threat vector where bad actors can get into. Or get in from. Okay, so that's one. You got to make sure that those operating systems are updated on those smartphones. Second is devices got to be encrypted. Most devices are encrypted, at least the smartphones, but Again, it's got to be enforced, and it's got to be in the policy. The other thing is, I'll tell you a little secret. For a long time, my wife did not like having a PIN on her phone. Well, yeah, it's kind of a pain. Now they have fingerprints, which makes it a lot easier. But there still are a lot of people who do not have PINs on their phones. Well, that's another technical requirement that as a business owner, you don't want any random person to be able to, if they lose the phone, if they, if family member, I don't know, but you don't want them going through company email. What happens if there's privileged information or protected information in that email? And that's not a liability as a business owner that you want. Next is the device has to be able to lock itself. If it's idle for so long, it has to be able to lock itself, and easy enough. Okay, after 5 minutes, goes to sleep, locks. I think that's most do it nowadays. If you lose your phone or it's stolen, you need to report that. Whoever the IT department is, IT person, you need to let them know. Ideally, if you have mobile device management enabled on these phones as part of your policy, you can then remote wipe the data, the company data that's on that phone. Again, protecting your interests, your liability, your business information, and potentially your patient or client information as well. Devices can't be jailbroken or rooted. It just opens up too many potential possibilities for problems, breaches, privacy, security, compliance, all those things. So that's just kind of a no-brainer. I know there's folks out there that love to jailbreak and do those other things to their phones. That's fine. Let them. They just can't access your company data or email from their personal phone then. That's got to be defined up front. I hope nowadays this might be a little bit more obvious, but in the event that it's not, you don't want personal devices plugged into company computers or laptops, anything like that, especially or even if they're just wanting to charge it. Again, you don't know their device is their personal device. You don't know what they're doing with it or what they've downloaded or what they've got going on. You plug that right into a corporate device, and it bypasses any security, firewalls, safeguards, and everything that you have on your network, just like that. You don't want that. Don't let users to plug in personal devices into company computers. Now, the other thing is most of these personal smartphones have hotspots, or they can act as a hotspot, right? So you can tether it, and what if I'm a user? Yeah, I doubt most of them aren't being malicious, but I mean it is quite possible that if they can't do something and they're trying to bypass some security or firewall settings, and you allow them to plug in their phones, they can easily use their hotspot on their phone and then get to whatever they want on the internet. So again, bypassing any security measures that you've probably spent thousands of dollars on to protect your network. I mean, it's so easy to circumvent and bypass some of these things. And, we just need to, again, spell it out, tell them exactly what is acceptable, what is not, as far as a corporate policy goes, company policy. Now, if you want to get fancy and go into more granular specifics on tight controls around your corporate data, I'll give you an example. We had a user call in that was using their own personal phone, BYOD, for business and work. And, that's fine. That's part of the policy, and they could do that. And I don't have a problem with that. But what was concerning is that they needed help because they had so much company data on their personal phone that they needed help getting it off. And I just thought, oh, geez. Now that is concerning to me because one, it's data in this isolated phone. It's not managed, not controlled, and nor is it backed up. And if it's really that critical and they needed to get it off, maybe there's a better avenue for it to be managed so that it's not on an island by itself. So one of the things that you can do if you want to get more high level for managing devices and what data is on their personal phones or corporate phones, it could be the same, is you can control whether or not they can, let's say, copy and paste or do screenshots of company data. You do have capabilities through the Microsoft 365, Azure, a suite, Microsoft Intune specifically, and other services where you can control some of these parameters on what users can do. The copy and paste is a good one. The other thing that's really good is if they really need access to company data on their smartphone, give it to them, allow them to do it within a container. And that container very easily could be Microsoft SharePoint app or the Microsoft OneDrive app on their phone. That way, they can work and be efficient and have access to everything they need. But at the same time, company has some visibility controls in place so that they can protect their intellectual property, their privacy, information, and security, and all of the above with that information. So at the same time, you're enabling the user to be able to do their work. You're also protecting the liability and risk of the business. Now, if they ever go out of compliance, then they immediately lose access to all those privileges and capabilities. And the system can manage that automatically. So you're not having to monitor that manually on a regular basis. The system knows when it's out of compliance, immediately blocks access. Another favorite that I have is not being able to export contacts. You want to protect, or you have not just sales, but if you have a client user list or a client list, you don't want that information just getting out there or anybody to be able to just easily extract it and copy it over. So you have the capability to block that function, that ability to do so. Okay, now to I think the more stickier part of the equation, and that is what happens if when you terminate an employee, they quit or they lose their phone and there's company data on that phone. How do you handle that? How do you manage that? Now, there are capabilities. If you've set up mobile device management using a variety of different solutions, if you set that up, you can do a remote wipe. Ideally, most cases, just the company data. But there are occasions and there are times where there's an issue and that doesn't work. So then can you remote wipe the whole phone? Because sometimes that is a necessary step, is not just wiping company data, but wiping the whole phone. So factory reset, all the data is gone. Can you do that? And have you talked to your employees about that possibility in the event that something does happen? You might think, that's not really going to be a big deal. I doubt that will ever happen. Let me tell you that is one of those things that will happen. And when it does, you don't want to be caught off guard, because then it's a big deal. So it's good to figure it out now and think about what your company policy is going to be and what you want it to be and what's acceptable, and then communicate that with the client, with your users and employees right away. And if they want that privilege to be able to access their email, or you need them to have their access to their email or other company data, then communicate, put this out there, and make sure that they understand the parameters around that access. Now, there's a lot of other things too, where, providing company phones, corporate phones, and things for business. But, I've tried that before. I'm like, okay, I want to control the data. Here's a company phone. Well, you know how many of the employees ever wanted to do that? About zero. Because nobody wants to carry around two phones, and it just becomes a hassle. In that particular case, for me, I feel like it's very reasonable, and most users are really understanding, because you put in the documentation, you put in the agreement or policy, whatever, that says, hey, look, we're going to make best efforts to in the event that we have to, we're going to just remote wipe the company data. But if we can't, we do reserve the right to wipe the whole phone. And, and the users typically, no big deal. But you do want to say, hey, look, make sure you back up your personal devices. Make sure you back up your phones and do it on a regular basis. And nowadays the technology's there. I mean, you just do the Apple backups. I do Amazon backups for my photos on my phone. There's a lot of different ways to back up your mobile device, and I would encourage them to do that as part of the policy or policy conversation. You don't have to make them do it. So anyway, just a few notes around mobile device management. And when I say, it's coming down and trickling down to the small business, I'm seeing it. Any business that accesses email on their phones should have a mobile device policy in place. Whether you have 3 users or 3 people, 5, 20, 50, you need to have a mobile device policy in place. It clears the air. There's no gray area, and everybody understands what is what's expected and what will happen in the event that something does occur. And it enables you to protect your business, the company data, the email, the information, and client or patient information, whatever you have on there. Well, it doesn't take much to save a lot of headache. And I'm happy to share the mobile device policy that we have with you for free. It's not all original from me or us, but we have spent some significant time and effort in kind of doing some research and looking into this and having some policy put together that we use with our clients and that we share with them as a free template. And I am happy to share that with you. If you want to message me or shoot me an email at byronm@technologize.com, I am happy to share that with you and email you a copy of what that policy is. And at any point, if anybody really wants a little bit more in-depth conversation, happy to chat, no problem. I'm passionate about this stuff, and I see the need and I see the importance of it, and I'm happy to help help anybody have a conversation and go over it in more detail as needed. So thank you for listening today. And again, my name is Byron Martin, CEO of Technologize, I'll say the best IT company, IT management company, cybersecurity company at least in the Tri-Cities and Bend, Oregon. And it may be the world too, but just, I want to be a little bit more humble on that. So thank you again for listening, and I'll sign off until next time.